Hey everyone, my name is Ben Gromiko. I'm from InterNACHI. That's the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors. And we do live online webinars. They're interactive, they're open to everyone. And today we're doing a webinar about home inspectors making even more money. And we have a special guest vendor company, Sporecyte, and we have 3 presenters. So that's really nice. I don't have to do all the talking. Ben, Jim, and Dylan. And they're from Sporecyte, and we're going to talk about mold inspections. That can be an ancillary inspection or a standalone inspection. I remember when I was a home inspector, I was doing a home inspection, spending 4 hours doing a home inspection. And then there was this other professional who came in during my home inspection, and they did a few things with a couple gadgets and left. And so I grabbed that person and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" "I'm doing a mold inspection." And I asked them, "How much are you making?" And sure enough, they were making more than me. So I was spending more time making less money. So this is not necessarily just an ancillary inspection, an add-on. It could be a huge revenue stream, a vertical column that you can get into. So listen up. We're going to talk about mold inspections and making money, and a good opportunity for you with Sporecyte. So fellas, thank you so much for joining us on an InterNACHI webinar and talking to our home inspectors about this opportunity. And if you have any questions, everybody who's attending, feel free to ask. I want you to do 2 things: chat it or question it. So you can use Q&A. You have a Q&A button there. I kind of like that because you can upvote good questions, and you can chat away to everybody as well. And we'll take those questions or comments at the end of the presentation. So fellas, thank you again. And Ben, you want to take over?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for spending the time today to take a look at this. As Ben said, this is a new service that will allow you to add to your existing home inspection services, and it shouldn't be much additional time. And we'll describe that as we get into it. So the goal of today's webinar we'll show you how we're using AI to count, classify, and see what's in your air. And that's everything from mold to pollen to air particulates. And so you can give your customers a pretty good view of what's in that home's air. So let me start here. So AI, many of you've probably heard of AI. And there's a pretty famous professor at Stanford University, Dr. Lee. And she's got this quote that she sees the AI will be the 4th industrial revolution and impact everyone's lives. We agree with Dr. Lee. And some of these services that I've got listed up here, you may not even know that they're using AI. Things like Siri, Google Photos, Uber, Tesla, Amazon, spam filters, Nest. These are all services that we use every single day that are all using AI. And whether it's a text-based learning AI, natural language processing, or image analysis, which is what we do, it's all AI, and we'll talk about how it happens. The type of AI that we're using is very, very similar to what Tesla uses, for their self-driving cars. So let's talk about how AI is going to impact home inspection and some of the challenges that we've seen, and the reason why we've spent about 6 years creating this product. First of all, there is a lot of demand for mold testing and actually air quality. We try to expand it to air quality analysis. The World Health Organization reports that about 50% of homes have mold issues, but only about 5% of those homes are tested. So if you look at the 7.5 million home inspections that are done every year, and you think about 50% of those homes have a mold or a water issue that would be good to notify the buyer about, but only 5% are getting tested. That's a lot of opportunity for you to provide a really value-add service to your customer that doesn't take much additional time, and we'll show you why. Today, we think that number 5% is low because it's hard to scale the business today. In the traditional method, it's hard to do that. Mold testing is expensive. You send these off to a lab, and they are then going to go through their process, and it's expensive because you've got a person that's an expert looking at this slide. And we're gonna show you how there's a new different method there. It's difficult to train staff, both on your staff and also at the mold lab, to do this today. And we think there's just a much simpler way to do this. And then finally, most mold labs don't really look at pet and air quality issues. And while we're looking at a slide, we might as well do that and let the AI just get it. So those are some of the reasons why we think that number is so low. And we're, with this service, we hope to lower the cost and to increase the accuracy and the consistency, so that it can be something that you can offer your clients. So in the current lab technique, so if you were to take one of these cassettes and use a mold pump to get a trace, when it goes to the lab, they have a person looking in a microscope, and they're looking at this trace right here. So over on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a mold trace. Okay, that's sitting on a slide, and the job is to count and classify everything that's on that slide. Well, to do everything is too expensive. So the current, the best practice method is to read about 20 to 30% of that trace, and then use statistics to, predict what's on the rest of it. And what we found over reading thousands and thousands of slides is that methodology is just not consistent, because as you can see by this slide, there's clumps of things. And if you only read a portion of it and then multiplied and used stats to get the rest of that slide, it's going to be inaccurate. And we've seen the same slides read by the same text at different periods of time, and their reads are very, very, very different. And so we're going to show you a better way. And the better way is through machine learning. So machine learning is basically a field of computer science within artificial intelligence that gives the ability for computers to learn how to count and classify or predict, make predictions. And we don't actually program it. So in the past, there's a thing called shallow learning, where you would say, hey, look for this Aspergillus spore. It's about 4 to 5 microns. It's about this color. And that type of learning, it wasn't robust enough. And if the stain wasn't exactly the same, or the lighting was a little bit different, you get different results. So deep learning, we actually show we use hundreds of thousands of images, and that allows us to create training that then will look at every single part of that trace. So here's that same trace that I was showing you before with our AI applied to it, and all these little squares, all these little different colors on this trace are boxes that have count and classified different mold spores, particulates, or pollen. And we're going to read, because computers are really good at reading everything, right? They're going to go through every pixel on that image. We can read 100% of the trace very, very quickly and get you consistent, accurate results every single time. So our goal as a company is provide quick, inexpensive, and accurate mold reports for home inspectors. And we just think if we can lower that price and make it so you can still make a good margin and the customers can afford it, that more mold tests and more mold screening will be able to take place. And because 50% of those homes have mold and water issues, it's a better solution. It's really a win-win-win for everyone. So how do we do this? If you're not familiar with what deep learning is, we are using a concept that's called a convolutional neural network. And that's a scary sounding name, but it's actually pretty simple. What we do is we take images from tens of thousands of slides, and we create boxes around hundreds of thousands of images of all of the different types of spores, particulates that you're going to see on a slide. In this case, we're looking at an alternaria, right? You can see how different all of those are. If you were to try to do this in a shallow learning technique, it would be very, very difficult, because you can see there's different shades of colors, there's different sizes, there's different shapes. But we take those tens of thousands of images and we input those into a convolutional neural network, and the computer breaks those images down into features, about over 4,000 features. it's hard for our mind as humans to even comprehend what 4,000 features even looks like on a particular image, but it does it. And through the use of GPUs, which are graphical processing units, they can process these convolutions very, very quickly and basically take those features and statistically figure out what makes an alternaria in terms of what it looks like on the screen. So once those features are learned and we create what's called a model, it basically is a classification model, and it will figure out the difference between alternaria, stachybotrys, aspergillus, euclideum, etc. Once that model, we've been doing this for 6 years, pretty much on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day. And over time, the model gets really, really, really good. And so we've created a model that we then make available to our mold technicians, that they can read a mold slide very, very quickly. So maybe more than you want to know about machine learning, but hopefully it gives you an idea of what we do day to day, sort of on the back end, behind the scenes. So what that results in. So we've got a picture here of Tony Stark. Tony Stark was a pretty smart human being, but when you put the suit, suit on him, he becomes a superhero, right? And that's sort of what happens with AI plus humans. Humans are very good at making visual and data associations many times better than computers, okay? That's going to change over time, but today that's where we're at from an accuracy perspective. Computers, however, are way more consistent, and they will go through process every pixel on that image, and humans just can't do that as well as a computer. So when you combine, we've got an interface that combines the benefits of a computer, meaning going through the whole trace and bring up every single image. Then the human can fix anything that the computer didn't get exactly right. AI is not perfect. It's in the 90 to 95% range in terms of accuracy. And so we fix anything, and then instead of taking 20 minutes to provide a result that's 30% of the slide not very consistent, we can do it in 3 minutes and provide you a very, very consistent result every single time, and do that very, very quickly and inexpensively. So let's talk about this process and what you as a home inspector would have to do if you wanted to add this as a service for your customers. First of all, we've got a starter pack that lets you order a pump and 3 cassettes. Now, here's what those look like. This is a battery operated pump, and those cassettes fit on this black opening right here. And all you have to do is press the button. Once you put that cassette on the pump and press the button, it's going to run for 5 minutes, and it's going to collect a trace on a slide on a gel pad that's inside of this cassette. And then you're going to take those cassettes and you're going to put them in an envelope. And we've got a prepaid 2-day domestic FedEx labels, and those are included in the start when you order the starter pack. And you simply drop it off at one of 40,000 locations nationwide, and that comes to us. And in the same day, we're going to prep that slide, analyze it, and give you a report. Now we can do a tape sample if you're familiar with mold testing. Sometimes if you can see mold, you just want to find out what type of mold it is. And in that case, it's easy to do a tape sample or a swab, and those can be done with this process as well. They can be put in the FedEx pack and shipped back to us. The costs are inexpensive, so we've got a 3 sample minimum, and that's $99 for basically a same day result. And then if there are additional rooms, let's say that generally when you go to a house, you'll do an outside area, an inside area that you think may have mold, and an unaffected area. So you do 3 collections. If the home is a bigger home, or there's visible water damage, or you suspect water damage, then you can do additional tests, and that just results in an additional margin. At the end of the day, you're going to receive back a beautiful digital report with the counts and the images of the spores and particulates and pollen that we found. So it's instead of just getting a report back and saying, hey, we found these mold spores, we're going to give you a report that breaks it into which spores are the water-related spores, which ones are just from the outside air and you don't really need to worry about. So we're going to help you understand what spores are bad and what spores you don't need to worry about, give you a particulate count, show you, if there's any pets in the home, etc. So it's a pretty comprehensive report, and it'll come as a PDF. Then you have access to actually see the results that the mold tech came up with. On the lab side, so when we get the sample, we've got a non-toxic stain that we've developed that we prepare the slide, we stick it on a scanner, so it's going to get digitized, and again we're gonna scan that whole slide area, that whole trace, and we've got single slide scanners to really high volume scanners, so that we can handle thousands of scans a day if needed. And then we're going to perform that AI analysis and get that report to you back digitally to the home inspector. That process again takes us about 3 minutes to go and correct a report that we've done. So it'll be very, very quick, and we can get you same day results, which just hasn't been feasible. Generally, if you're close to a mold lab and they can do same day results for you, they're going to add an additional $50. So you're looking at $80 to $100 to get just one room read in the traditional method. So this should be a lot less inexpensive, should allow you to make good money and provide a good, get a good margin, but provide an inexpensive service to your customer. Jim, Dylan, anything I've missed so far? Anything you'd add at this point?
You're doing great.
Okay.
Going.
Awesome. We'll keep going, and then if you do have any questions, we will answer at the end. So if you'll hang with us, we'll get to your questions. Okay, here's an example of that report. So you can see we've broken it down into the spores that you really want to care about when you're doing a mold inspection. Really, if mold spores are blowing in from outside, that can be corrected, and that it's sort of it's good information to know. But what you're really trying to provide for the homeowner is if they have a water problem, which is then resulting in a mold problem. And so these are the indoor water-related spores. We'll give you a count and a comparison of what was found outdoor versus indoor in the rooms that you've done, and that comparison lets you say, this one's elevated, and you should take take action or recommend further inspection. And with every class that we give you, we're also giving you a picture or multiple pictures of what we found. So if the case ever went to court or legal, or if the homeowner is just curious, you've actually got the images. And that is, it is, if you get a report that just has numbers on it versus seeing the mold that was or the particulates that were actually in your home, it's a much different experience for that end consumer, and is it just provides a better experience for them. So let's talk a little bit about the economics of what we hope this will be a really good thing for your business. So we are suggesting, and this is totally up to you, but we're suggesting that you could include mold testing on every job by getting the price down. So we suggest a $215 home buyer cost. And for that, they're getting the peace of mind of costly hidden mold repairs. If you've got mold behind a wall that no one can see, but you caught it because it was shedding those spores, and you got it in the air, that could save them a lot of money down the line. And water related issues, as you know, can come from anywhere, from the roof, from plumbing, from a shower. It can come from a variety of sources, from the foundations. So by doing this comprehensive mold test, you can save your home buyers a lot of money. So this would be the cost, right? You've got to get your cassettes and swabs, which are pretty inexpensive. And that would be, for 3 samples, it costs you about $15, and then $99 for the analysis. Again, that's a same day analysis, so it's about $114, which results in $101 profit. Now, if you feel like you can charge more in your area, depending on the, the economics and, how much competition there is, that number could go up. And this is just a suggested price. We don't govern what you charge your customers. So it's a pretty healthy profit margin. If you look at what you're doing today in your home inspection, and you added this on to every, to every home, trying to catch those 50% of homes that have a mold problem, that it results in a happy customer for your customers and additional profit on every job for you. Okay, we do have a different solution. So the main solution that we're selling here at this upcoming year is you get that pump, you put a cassette on it, and you send it back to us via FedEx. If you are a mold inspection, or sorry, a home inspection company that has more volume than just one home inspector, we do have an option where you could actually digitize the slides at your location. This is a scanner, a single slide scanner out of Finland called the Grundium, and it is the best scanner by far for remote mold inspections. Whether you leave this, you can actually take this to this site and connect it to a wireless network, or you can leave it back at your home base. And if you've got enough volume, it may make sense because you can eliminate your shipping costs. If timing is important, you could get really almost an immediate result. And that, again, that's just getting a higher margin. The slide preparation is very easy, and we can provide you with that non-toxic stain. It's basically a drop of non-toxic stain on the slide. We do have a proprietary cover slip that you put on there. Mold is very, very sparse, and so it's very difficult for a scanner like this to scan a mold trace. If you just put a normal mold trace on there, maybe 25% of the time you're going to get a good image of the whole slide. It's very, very difficult because these scanners, they were developed initially for tissue slides, so they need something to focus on. So our cover slips provide fiducials, which allow the scanner to focus on those fiducials and find that mold trace layer, which is beneath the fiducials, and get a good scan every single time. So we've got the ability to do that. We can train your team how to do it. It's very, very easy to do. And that is a different option if you're doing a lot of these things, and it would make sense from a volume perspective to get an ROI on that $20,000 scanner. So we appreciate you again coming today and learning a little bit more about this. If you would like to learn more, this product is in beta testing right now. We're just working through all the kinks of delivering the tests or delivering the reports and everything back. We're really working out all the kinks. So if you would like to learn more about Sporecyte and how mold testing could be added to your services today, we'd love to do a 1-hour virtual demo with you and discuss in detail with the product managers what types of things, like in the report or in the whole workflow of the service, how we can make it easier for you. For example, what types of things would you like to upload about each customer to our system so that you could get added to the report? There's lots of little details there that we'd love to work with people on. You'd have the ability to influence the how that end product looks, and then in the end result, profit your business by partnering with Sporecyte. So that's our webinar for today. If you have any questions, looks like we've got a few. I'll go over. Jim, Dylan and I would be glad to answer some of these. So the first question is there any need to calibrate the unit? That is the beautiful thing about these particular, beautiful thing about these particular pumps and the scanners. The pumps come pre-calibrated, so you don't have to do anything with the pump. There's no settings on the pump. Basically, you've got to just make sure you've got fresh batteries and you press the button. So on the pump side, there's no calibration. And if you did get one of the scanners, there's no calibration either. They come calibrated from the factory. They're really robust and durable. They come in a Pelican case so that you can ship them and carry them to remote sites if needed. So neither of the tools need a calibration. The second one, can subsequent sampling use the same pump? What is the expected life expectancy of a pump? So these pumps can be used multiple times. I would expect on the pump, it should be good for about 10,000 samples, but we'll actually get back to the manufacturer. That was what the spec was, but we'll have to get back to the manufacturer and get back to you on that one. So that's a good question. We'll get, we know what the spec is. We'll see if it lives up to that. Can you paint over mold with a mold and mildew paint to control or kill it instead of making a big production out of solving the problem? Actually, we don't recommend that. Generally, mold is growing in a home because of a water problem. So it's really important to find the source of the problem to fix the mold. So if you paint over mold, that's literally just a temporary fix, and we would not recommend something like that. You want to if you solve the core water related problem, then and clean the mold, then it shouldn't come back. Dylan has a lot of experience with this. Dylan, any suggestions on that, or from your expertise?
Yeah, no, Ben, you're exactly right. The proper way is, one, you want to solve that moisture issue. Mold is a symptom of an underlying moisture problem. So if you just cover up the mold, you're actually covering up a bigger problem that could lead to even more damage down the line. And then also, there are some products out there that are sold as an encapsulant for mold. But the literature, the scientific actual research on how well those encapsulant products work are really just not there in the scientific literature. The standards for mold remediation or cleanup don't have any acceptable encapsulation procedures. It's, if it's on a porous surface or semi-porous surface like drywall or plaster, you actually need to remove that drywall itself and replace. There's no acceptable encapsulation in the existing remediation standards that the remediation industry follows. So it's something that there's products out there for that method, but I wouldn't recommend doing it. It's more of a Band-Aid than an actual fix to the problem.
Thanks, Dylan. The next one was a question about carbon monoxide detectors. I have no idea. We're not experts on carbon monoxide detectors, so you have to go to someone else on that one. Doug, when is this service available? So it's available now in beta form, and we will be launching it at the first of the year. So appreciate that. So if you're interested in in working with us, we can tweak it to work exactly for your business. Okay, I was told by HVAC business owner that dirt mold in the AV vent and grills is always dirt and never mold because it's a highly vented area. Is this true? I don't know. Dylan, what would your opinion be on this one?
Yeah, so it's a makeup of what's in your indoor air. So skin cells, hair fragments, there would be some mold in there. I think what the HVAC technician was saying is it's not likely going to be mold growth that you need to be concerned with. There's always mold floating around in our air, and in an impact zone like an HVAC, like a return register, where that air is hitting those grills and collecting. Some mold will collect in there, but it's not going to grow because it doesn't have the proper moisture and nutrients to grow like it would on wet drywall. So something like that, clean up, wipe off, because it's not technically going to be a mold problem. It's just an accumulation of whatever's in the particulates that are in your air collecting on those surfaces.
Great, thanks, Dylan. Okay, so it looks like we have one more. How are the reports returned to the inspector? Is there an online portal to download them? So yes, initially those reports are returned via email, but that will be turned into a portal. We've got some development to do on that, but the portal will have a listing of all of the tests that you've done. Today, you would get a report in an email that has a link that takes you back to the actual test that was that was completed at Sporecyte. So it acts like a portal, but we will provide in the future a portal that lets you see all of your past tests. But today you just have to manage that in email. So you'd get an email with a link in the link that would take you back to the portal, but the PDF would be a full report with everything you need, unless you were more curious and wanted to actually see, and move around and see the individual trace. Let me show you what that looks like. So when you, if you did get the link, this is the user interface that we use on the back end. The link would be something like this, which would let you see all of the individual spores and the counts. And then you could actually come and look at the whole trace on the slide. Now, so you can come in and see everything that we found. Now, the report would look something, this isn't exactly how it looks today. This is an example. It gives you the indoor water related spores, the indoor outdoor spores, the predominantly outdoor spores, and then their counts, and then any pictures that were included as well. So this is similar to what it will look like. The one that will ship is it looks better than this, and it just comes as a PDF. So we download this and can send it to you, and it has that link back to this area, where you can basically get you can look at everything that was found versus just a few of these highlighted ones.
I've never seen a mold report with the actual pictures of the
it doesn't exist today.
That is excellent. That is excellent.
No commercial lab even really has the capacity to do what we do. Even the largest labs in the country and internationally, they just can't do it because they don't have the systems in place to even scan a whole slide, let alone classify, identify like we do.
Yep.
Okay, a few more questions. Do we have time, Ben, for a
Sure.
few more?
Yep.
Okay. Does the device need to be placed in a specific place? Example, on a floor or a table? Dylan, do you have any recommendations on that?
Yeah, so when you do air sampling, you want to place the pump in what's called the breathing zone, about approximately 3 to 4 feet above the floor. So on a countertop, you could set a pump on a tripod, which is what a lot of people will do, because sometimes you've got a bedroom that may be just completely empty. You don't even have anything but the floor to set it on. So tripod is usually the best solution, but countertops, dressers, anything like that, you could place it on. You don't want to place it too low on the floor. You don't want to place it too high up towards the ceiling, just because that's not representative of the industry. Is all built around what your client might be breathing in. And that's going to be in what's called the breathing zone. So that's where it's all the recommended guidelines out there recommend sampling from.
Perfect. Okay, the next question. So would we refer a mold issue to a mold remediation company? The answer would be yes, right? So we're not a mold remediation company, and there's going to be literally tens of thousands of those companies around the country and the world, that you want to look in your area to find a reputable company to look at that if you did find an issue. The other question along those lines was, how about other detectables? Can you detect COVID or other germs? So this is a microscopy-based test. So the scanners that we're using, they scan at a microscopic level, and the smallest that we can get down to is about a micron. So we can detect less than 2.5. Let me show you if I've got some here. Let me show you some. Yeah, so we can detect particulate down to less than 2.5 microns. If you see these particulates, they're pretty small. But germs, COVID, those are down at a very, very small level, less than 1 micron. And so we cannot detect those. So anything 1 micron above, so any particulate, PM 2.5 or below, we're going to be able to get, and then above that. Things like skin fragments, animal fragments, skin fragments, we'll get that, but we're not going to be able to get COVID or other germs. So question, is your lab accredited by the CDC or AIHA? And the answer is our lab isn't accredited, but our techs are. So for example, Dylan is an accredited reader, and so he can provide an accredited read. Dylan, do you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I can kind of elaborate. So for mold laboratories, the CDC doesn't have a accreditation program for mold. They will accredit other laboratories that do things like clinical laboratory sciences, bacteriology, like Legionella testing, things like that. The CDC has programs for, but for mold, they don't have a strict program just for what we do. And then on the other aspect, AHA, they do have a mold or an environmental microbial accreditation, but it's more for full service environmental microbiology laboratories. We're strictly doing mold. So what laboratories that strictly do mold tend to do sometimes is there's a certification that certifies individuals as opposed to the full laboratory. It's called the Pan American Aerobiology Association, PAACB. They have a spore analyst certification program, which I am a certified spore analyst through the PAACB. So that's what a lot of just mold laboratories will do. So in some states in one state, there is laws around accredited mold laboratories, and that's Texas. And you can have it AHA accreditation, a few other accreditations, or your analysts have to be PAACB certified. So that's the route we're taking, is individually getting our analyst certifications, as opposed to, and to be honest, those certification programs for the laboratories just aren't equipped to assess something like us, where we're a software company that's performing these analyses, as opposed to bench chemistry or microbiology in a lab where you're growing things on plates. So it's just that we're doing something so different that the accreditation process just doesn't quite intersect with what we're truly doing. So currently we're going that route as individual certifications in the analysts.
That's a
Well,
great
fellas,
question.
I think that's it for the questions.
Okay.
Any last words?
Yeah, so just so they know, those images that were annotated that we've used to create our algorithms, those have been developed again over years. And the person who has helped us do that is John Haynes. John Haynes is literally one of the gurus in the nation for mold. He has taught the Macron classes, so he is the person that teaches analysts how to do this, at the Macron Institute. So we were super lucky to get to work with John. He's just an amazing person, and has just been super influential in making this, a very accurate and good product.
Well, that's good to know. And I want to thank you all for being here. For those folks who are listening to the podcast, the audio version of our live video webinar, Sporecyte is, the URL is www.sporecyte.com. That's SPORECYTE.com, sporecyte.com for more information. Ben, Dylan, Jim, talkative Jim, always trying to get a word in. Thank you, fellas. I really appreciate it. And if anybody has any more questions, it looks like Jim's email is right there. And again, it's sporecyte.com. I really appreciate it. Thank you, fellas.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. We look forward to
Stay safe and healthy, everyone. Bye.